Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we are going to be hearing some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. Now, whether they've pushed their bodies to extremes, whether they've had personal challenges that they've overcome, you're going to want to hear their stories. So I will say, stay tuned to the end. That's where we ask some of the juiciest questions. And I would also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. I would also invite you to join up for our newsletter on activateandilluminate.com. Thanks for listening, guys. Hi, guys. So today you're going to be listening to a guy named Joe Gallagher. Now, Joe was such an inspiring conversation. He was a rock star. He was living the fast life. He was, living big. And he ended up in prison and behind jars. He wrote this book called From Bars to Jars. He was then led down a path of starting an Italian sauce line. It's a fascinating story. He even has Shark Tank looking at him at this moment. And it's just a story of redemption and a story of how we all, no matter where we are, can come back from anything and transform and transfix our lives. And this man, as you listen, will tug at your heart a little bit. And I would implore you all to go and look at his book as well. Check it out, From Bars to Jars, and tune in for Joe Gallagher. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. We are so appreciative of you being here today. Today we have Joe Gallagher. Now, you are going to be inspired by this story. You're going to be lit up by this story. I know I was. I even had some tears at this story. I felt a lot in talking to Joe, and so we wanted to share his story. Joe, I'm going to let you get into it and just start from the beginning of what you thought was the magic of really what was unfolding in your life.
Okay, yeah. So grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. Was in a great family, despite the violence and stuff like that, there was still love in the household. My father was a alcoholic and addict. He ended up getting sober when he was 44, but there's a lot of turmoil and chaos in my house growing up. And, so that kind of set the stage for a lot of the stuff that I ended up getting into, fighting and whatnot. And then, I started drinking at the age of 13. And from that first sip, I felt this like warm glow, and it was like what I've been looking for, because I always felt different. I had a hard time fitting in with kids my age and everything. So I went to a wedding. It was my cousin's wedding, and had that champagne, and ever since was chasing that feeling, because I felt like I had confidence. I felt like I was funnier. I felt like I looked and sounded older, and then around the age of 14 or 15, I was in the choir at my Catholic church, and ended up getting molested by the music director. And so that kind of, it really changed the trajectory of my life, because now it's like, I was being more explosive. I was trying to protect myself, wouldn't let people get really close, wouldn't let them know everything about me. And, again, fighting a lot. I got expelled from high school, and then I did a year of night school, and then I felt like this outside of a Subway eating a sandwich in my neighborhood. I felt like this calling that maybe I should try to get my act together and finish school. So my mother actually made a presentation to the Board of Ed, and I was the first kid in that district to come back to day school after being expelled and going through everything I did. I ended up graduating with high honors. I was a lone wolf, but it took me 7 years. I was in high school for 7 years. So all my friends were gone, and then I became like a vigilante. When I would see kids getting picked on and stuff like that, I would step in and, do the right thing. But that mentality, it was short lived, because once I started drinking really heavily again. So for my senior year, I was able to put things down, temporarily. But, I didn't have a program of action to replace the alcohol. There's a void in my soul that I was trying to fill with all kinds of external things. And then the music, the music industry. So I started playing guitar at like 15, 16 years old. By the time I was 17, I was already, hosting open mic shows and events. I ended up getting a chance to play with some of the original members of the Wailers, Bob Marley and the Wailers, so. Wow. So I got plugged into like the professional music scene pretty early on, and that applause and the recognition from doing that, being so young and talented, that I got lost in that. And what started as really just being passionate about music and wanting to get my sound out there. You know I've written up to over 2,500 songs in 10 different genres from the age of 17 to 33 is I think when I stopped. But I know this is a lot. There's a lot here,
No,
but
it's all good.
so I music. I got married at 21. On my honeymoon, got kidnapped in the Bahamas. Had to escape. Obviously, I didn't die. Statistically, that doesn't happen. Most guys that go off the reservation in a foreign land, which they actually warned me not to leave the reservation. But I was on the beach in Nassau. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. One of the locals was hosting a contest and betting $100 that he could outdrink his opponent. So I had like 22 shots of rum. I lost the bet, but I lost even more after that because I was in a blackout. By 11 o'clock in the morning, we're in the Hard Rock Cafe, and this is all really vague, but we're having brunch. I went outside for a cigarette, and some guy was selling weed and asked me if I wanted some, and didn't even think twice about it. I just left with him. Didn't know where we were going. So I ended up getting on a bus 45 minutes into the middle of nowhere, and I got jumped. That guy brought me into the basement of an abandoned restaurant, and now there's 7 or 8 guys, and they tied me up, took my gold chain and watch, and it was a nightmare. I started coming to. They wanted me to drain my bank account, so after they took all my stuff, they brought me in a car. Now there's only 2 guys. They brought me in a car, and I had come to when I noticed that it was a one-way street there going down to get to the ATM, and it was a real narrow road. So as soon as they let me out of the car, I booked, and I was a pretty fast runner. In high school I ran a 4.5 minute mile. So I'm gone, and they had to go all the way down the other end of the street and turn around, and it was, so 3 miles weaving in and out of neighborhoods. I ended up finding a cop outside of a clothing store, and they got me back on the boat. The boat was in port, stayed in port 8 hours. I was missing. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. But you would think that would be enough to kind of stop drinking, and it wasn't. You would think that'd be enough that my wife at the time would be like, "No way, I'm not doing this no more." Because she was scared. She was really scared. So that marriage, fighting constantly, a lot of bad scenes, and we had 2 children. Savannah and Joey, so that's 2006 and 2008. I thought that having a child might change me and, make me want to get my act together. Again, all these moments, all these calamities and I was hoping for something outside to fix me, and that wasn't the case. I was pretty irresponsible, selfish. I couldn't stop harming myself. I couldn't put the drink down. So I was there, but I wasn't. Although the times that I did get to spend with my children, it was beautiful. We had a lot of good times too, all bad. But, so then in 2014, the kids are now 6 and 8. I thought it would be the best decision to leave the state of Connecticut because, I had supervised visitation only. I still wasn't all there, and I felt like I was doing them a disservice, and I couldn't really parent my kids because my parents didn't trust me around the kids, because I was all messed up, So I left, not knowing what the repercussions of that would be to the relationship. In my mind, I thought, I could come back and forth from, Charleston, South Carolina to Connecticut, every month or something. That's what I was telling myself in my head. And I really believed it. I really believed that I was going to be able to do that, but that's not what happened. I was doing FaceTime every weekend, but I was taking Xanax and still drinking and stuff, and they didn't like that. I didn't know. They didn't say anything. They just were happy to talk to me, but I didn't know that it was having a deeper effect, So COVID hits, and now let me back up. So I'm in contention for a Grammy nomination for Best New Rock Artist in 2017. During the voting process from October, I think it goes on from October to December, it was hit by a truck. I was rear-ended. I had a business called Chucktown Paint, and I was making a delivery. And I was at a red light and somebody hit me going about 60 miles an hour, totaled my car, and I had 2 spinal surgeries. I was in the hospital for a while.
This episode brought to you by ProTandemCanada.LifeVantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, ProTandemCanada.LifeVantage.com.
I didn't think I was going to walk again. I lost feeling in my hands and they went to the front of my throat, so it moved my vocal cords, so I couldn't sing, I couldn't play guitar anymore. And I thought my life was over because my whole life I dedicated and was willing to sacrifice literally everything to be successful in the music industry. I lost the joy, I lost the passion. It was more like just the ambition and the glitz and glamour that I was chasing. You know, the applause is what I was, again, thinking was going to fix me internally. And God had other plans, you know. That truck slammed me in the back, stopped me dead in my tracks, and I had to really reevaluate things, you know. So after that, I got out of the hospital. I was getting cabin fever, and I went to a bar. Shouldn't have been there, but there was a birthday party. I had no intention of drinking. I was there for about 10 minutes, and there was a guy trying to leave, very intoxicated. And being a good Samaritan, I offered to give him a ride home, not knowing that that was probably the biggest mistake of my life, because when I got to his trailer park, him and his roommate tried robbing me, and I happened to have a 2-inch pocket knife on me for the first time ever. I've never carried a weapon in all my days of all my debauchery. That day, you know, when they were robbing me, I thought they were going to kill me. I thought they were going for guns, and there's 2 of them. I couldn't defend myself. I stabbed the guy in the arm. I gave him a little cut, but I was holding the blade in my hand, you know, halfway down the blade, my finger was dangling. So there's blood everywhere. But it's my blood. And I lost track of one of the guys, thought he was going to get a shotgun or something in the other room. So I'm holding the other guy at knife point, and he was actually calling the cops. So the cops showed up, and I got charged with attempted murder, which really changed things. You know, blacklisted from the media, who was just singing my praises about the Grammys and all this stuff like 3 weeks prior, and couldn't get a job, couldn't do much. You know, my wife was supporting me the whole time, and then I started getting arrested, reckless driving, DUI, domestic violence. You know, smashing things in the house. I was so mad at myself, and really, I tried to kill myself a bunch of times, taking pills and drinking liquor, and hung myself from a garage door opener on Christmas Eve. It didn't work, you know, because there's a reason I'm here, you know, and I think it's this whole story of redemption, you know. So what happened? You know, March of 2024, you know, I've got all these charges pending. Can't get a job at Walmart, you know, even bagging groceries or anything. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. My wife has had it. So I finally, you know, that last arrest, the domestic violence charge, that woke me up. That was finally what I needed, because now I have all these charges pending. You know, they want to throw the book at me. I'm facing 30 years, and it was time to get serious. So I finally walked into a meeting of recovery, found people like me, and brought some eggplant parmesan to one of the meetings. And somebody's like, yo, this is the best sauce I've ever had. Why don't you sell this? You know, you can't get a job. You got to do something. And I had no experience in the food industry. I had no idea what I was doing. I rolled the dice, did some research, said a prayer, and walked into a Piggly Wiggly, and they ordered 6 cases. And that's kind of where everything just started turning around.
So you had no experience in the food industry. Tell us what's happened since then, just to where you are right now as far as with your food brand and so forth.
So June 1st was my first sale, my first store. Within a month, I had 4 stores.
June 1st of 25, Joe?
No, June 1st of 2024.
Okay.
Apastioli, the company, the brand name was New Havens at the time, but I had 4 stores in about a month, and then I get a letter from Haven's Kitchen in New Jersey with a trademark infringement. They did a cease and desist. I had to change my name. So that's how Apastioli was born. It took me like 3 or 4 days to try to come up with another name. I had to pull all the product out of those 4 stores, relabel everything, and it was a nightmare. Thank God, though, there was only 4 stores and not 1,000 stores that I had to pull product from, you know? But, you know, so within 2 months, I'm at 7 stores, and within 6 months, I'm in like 15 stores, and realized that I couldn't keep up with the demand. Like it was doing so well. And at that point, I only had 1 product, and the reorder cycle was taking a little bit too long because it became a cash flow issue. So, in hindsight, you know, I should have been thinking scaling from Jump Street. Like if this does take off, you know, how are we going to manage that? How we got to put some systems in place on the production side, especially because I was doing everything by hand, pouring the sauce into the jars one by one. The most I could do is 300, 400 jars a night, Anyway, so I ended up pulling out of the commissary kitchen that I was renting because I was just chasing my tail. The cash flow, I was behind. I wasn't making money. I was barely making money, breaking even, if that. So I had to pause, really pray about it. And a calling came over me one night about doing a farm to table operation, vertically integrate the business so I could grow the crops, process them right there on the property, distribute them right there, have everything all in-house, and it goes even beyond that. Now I was going to break the company up into two entities, a nonprofit and a for-profit. So the nonprofit would be involved in staffing for recovering alcoholics and ex-convicts and veterans, and then do some weddings, do like events and stuff like that. But, that's a $25 million project. And in my mind, I was thinking that because of the demand, all these big retailers want my products, there's so much potential and everything that investment was going to come kind of overnight, and that didn't happen. So I had to pivot again and start thinking of outsourcing production. I wasn't getting all very warm, fuzzy vibes from doing that research because, that industry, it's really transactional, very cold, didn't feel good. They don't care about the brand. They just, sure, you write them a check and they'll make the product. So it took me a while, but I finally found a co-packer that is aligned morally. They're a family business and they really value like trust and long-term relationships. And they're not even a real co-packer. They don't do this for other brands. They have their own brand, and they like my story and they believed in what I was trying to do. And then I wrote a book. In the interim, waiting for these investments and waiting for production to kick back on, the product is dwindling off the shelves. I have no product to refill these shelves, and I've got 80 something stores waiting for product. So I had to do something. And back in November, right before I shut down the kitchen, I started writing a book called From Bars to Jars, about my life story, about going from literally behind bars, at bars drinking, to jars of sauce.
Wow. Now you talk about a redemption story. Now this really is. There's so many places that we could go with this, Joe. I feel like this story, I mean, there's so many God moments in here where you've been like redirected, slapped in the face, put back on your feet, and or you've had something bad happen to you and it's showing you it's taken you to your path. So do you feel like this is your purpose here? Like this is what you were meant to do?
Yeah, as far down the scale as I have gone, complete nothing. My scorecard had to read 0 for God to have fertile soil to start planting on, and now my experience can actually benefit others, because there's people out there in the music industry, food entrepreneurs, who are inflicted with the disease of alcoholism. My story can give hope, and that's really my only hope, is that my story helps them avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made. The quicker they could get to acceptance and accepting God in their life, a higher power that they can understand, that they can wrap their head around. It's not a religion, For me, though, I am part of the Church of the Nazarene. I really identified with them, and it took me 20-something years to walk back into a church and try to find a community of believers that I can relate to, or that accepted me. I had never felt accepted in any churches, especially once I started getting tattoos and all that stuff, But the Church of the Nazarene welcomed me with open arms, and I joined the praise team. I got baptized November 11th at 11:11 in the morning by a pastor who also has a food brand in the stores. He saw me at a product demonstration at one of the Piggly Wigglies and asked me if I had been baptized. We got into this conversation. I don't even know how the conversation started, really. But he told me to write a letter to God, thanking him for the things that I want as if I already had them. And he wanted the letter by Monday. Monday was November 11th. And I did that. And what's crazy is that the pastor didn't know I've had this tattoo on my arm for about 10 years. So 11/11 is on my arm, and that's when I got baptized. And since that's when the business that's when I started getting all kinds of stores, and now Food Lion wants my product, 170 stores in South Carolina alone, and all these other big retailers started contacting me right at that time. But the spiritual attacks have been more intense too. I've had a lot of doubts starting to creep in, a lot of fears, anxieties, panic attack, and things not going so smooth, and that's what happens when you're filled with the Holy Spirit. Now you have something that the enemy wants.
Yeah, I feel like what we are in right now really is it is a spiritual war. Now, I wrote something in my notes off your social media, and it says, "What I was praying for the night before Shark Tank called." Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, okay, I had applied. Once I started getting all these calls from these stores that wanted my product, I'm like, I needed funding, and I had the farm vision, which is $25 million. I'm like, where am I going to get the $25 million from? So I started doing everything and, contacting all kinds of people to try to get that investment. So I'm like, well, what about Shark Tank? I've never heard of a $25 million investment pitch on Shark Tank, but I could be the first. Stranger things have happened. So again, rolled the dice. I sent out the application. I filled out the application and didn't think anything of it. Didn't get a call, nothing like that. Then I can't remember what day it was, but I had booked an event with the Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina where I was going to be a vendor. We're going to be talking about the farm and all kinds of stuff, meeting all these, high class people at this event. So I think it was the 25th of December, I want to say. Anyway.
Christmas.
No, it wasn't. That's right. It couldn't have been. It was January 25th. That's what it was. January. So I had that event booked. I wasn't thinking anything about Shark Tank. It was out of sight, out of mind. I didn't know if I was going to ever get a call or whatever. Well, I get an email saying that the casting call, I had to be in San Diego. They gave me like 4 days to prepare. I get this email, and I had to be in San Diego the same day of this event. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to go. I got to do this event. I was told and taught that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. So I had already committed to that event. It was pretty important that I be there. So I said, I don't need Shark Tank. Maybe I get the investor right here at this event. So I did the event. It went amazing. I met some really cool people that were very interested in this project, and that started getting the ball turning in these conversations about, where that investment might come from. And then like a week later, I'm praying about somebody coming through with this investment, and Shark Tank calls me. The producers and the casting directors, like, we love your story. We want you on. They asked me all kinds of questions. They said, okay, we'll get back to you within 2 weeks. You'll hear from us. And then it was too late they had to start filming really soon or something. So they said it's not going to be this season, but 2018, they would like to have me on Shark Tank. So, or 2018, 2026, season 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who knows? Maybe by then, Joe, you are just able to say, you know what? Thanks, Shark Tank.
Right.
Got this.
Yeah. I think, that probably is going to be what happens, because, like I said, I'm already talking to people that are, I have to break this thing down into phases. So now I'm getting investors for the manufacturing, like right now, so I could service the stores. That's the most important thing, is to not lose that shelf space that I've worked so hard to get.
Yeah. So you said something there that has stuck out to me. You said he asked me to write a letter to God being grateful, or stating what I was grateful for as if it had already happened.
Yeah.
That's so powerful, because I think that concept right there is the key to everything.
Yeah. It's the secret to life.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Being grateful for what you have as if you've
for what you want.
Yeah.
For what you want that you don't have yet, but thanking him as if you have him, because it is promised to us in the Bible. Like, you believe it, he will give it. He will gladly give you the riches of the world. The righteous inherit the spoils of the wicked. So as long as you're doing the right thing, and your dreams and passions and what you want isn't going to hurt anybody, and it's what you're being called to do for the kingdom of God, you're going to be helping people. Especially, like, you can pray for yourself to receive things as long as people are going to benefit from it. If it's not coming from a place of selfishness,
Yeah.
And that was such a shift in my perception, because I was all about myself my whole life. I was just in survival mode, trying to protect myself, wanting fame and wanting glory for myself. It was backwards.
Do you think you were taken from the music industry or saved from the music industry?
Saved. I was saved. Down the road, will I do something again with music? Probably, because now with this book and everything, I got contacted from Angel Studios who did The Chosen. They were inspired by my story, and they are encouraging me to film a torch pilot to pitch to the major networks. So guess what this film series is going to need? Music, a soundtrack. I've got about 30, 40, 50 songs recorded, ready to go that, I haven't even started looking at which ones I would use to do a soundtrack. So
Wow.
God doesn't waste anything.
No, and that is something. So show us your book. So right now people are thinking, okay, this book, it's a little unclear. Put it up. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yep.
From bars to jars.
Yep.
From
So this
bars
is the
to
first.
jars.
This is a memoir. This is a nonfiction. Now, the film series that's going to be developed, I've written a second book already since I released this. This released May 30th. I just finished writing the first draft of the second book, which is From Bars to Jars, The Harvest, which is fiction, taking place on the farm that I don't have yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
It's going to be like a Yellowstone meets The Chosen meets Ozark meets, Lost.
Wow. Now this is what you were talking about as being Netflix?
So I can't say that it's definitely going to be on Netflix, but I can say that it will be pitched to major networks. I don't know who's going to end up picking it up yet.
Okay.
But there's interest. Well, I do have a Netflix producer, a friend of mine that I worked for back in Connecticut, who is very interested in helping me convert the manuscripts to a screenplay and getting this into development. And it makes sense that it might be Netflix because he's worked for them already, but who knows?
Okay. So you're former rock star, now this Apastioli brand. Tell us exactly if somebody wants these products and they're listening to this, where do they find this? How do they get this?
Can you read that? Probably not.
No, I can't. And just so you know, Joe, we will have all this information in the show notes for people, but say it in your own words so that people can hear it and just know exactly where to get these products in this book.
Sure, yeah. So From Bars to Jars is available on Amazon. It's also available on barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com, target.com. Then the sauce products are available just in Piggly Wigglies right now. There's 15 of them and one IGA here in South Carolina. But I do have my website up, apastioli.com, where you can get everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, does this ship just in the United States right now or to other countries?
All over. So Canada, Europe. I haven't tried shipping to Australia yet, but I don't know. Definitely Canada and Europe and the United States.
Okay. You had something else on your social media that you had put that struck me. You said you can come back from anything and I'm living proof.
Yeah. I mean, I was a dead man. There's no doubt about it. I was trying to take myself out more than once. My wife intervened. Yeah, I think God used her more than once to stop me in my tracks too. Just like that car accident stopped me in my tracks, because at that point I was doing so much cocaine, like I was going to die if I didn't slow down.
Yeah.
So
as far as this legacy going forward, where do you see this going? Where do you see the legacy of Joe Gallagher?
If nothing else, this story gets to my children and they can learn from themselves without listening to what people up north have told them, which 9% of it isn't true. They read the truth for themselves. And if they end up being interested and drawn to what I'm trying to do and get involved, that would be the dream, ultimate dream, is to be able to hand all this stuff over if they wanted it, and if they want to be back in my life.
Yeah. Well, this I know, Joe, is that, people's energy and intention, eventually, it always comes through. It always comes through. And you may have, done some things in the past that they may not understand or that they think they know, but they will always see the true character of who you are right now eventually. If you could say anything to them right now, what would you say?
Man, regardless of what you guys think, I've always loved you. It wasn't that. And I didn't give up my rights to you. Just I had to go through the fire to get to where I'm at now. And I'm always going to be here, whether you want to be in my life or not. You know, that's up to you guys, but I'm here and I'm different. I'm not the same guy that you knew back when.
Well, so many people have a story, Joe, of, shame and different things that they've done in the past. And this example of you just being the true essence of who you can be and showing up in a big way and really, you know, being a vessel. I see you
Mhm.
now, and admittedly, we don't know each other very well, but I see you right now as being a kind of a vessel of light and just being guided to where you need to be and showing up and doing the do. And my wish for you is that you everything that you wrote on that paper of what you wanted in the future is that it would come true for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And it is. I already things are that I wrote down. They are coming true. You know, it's truly a blessing, and it's a great honor and privilege that that God can use my destruction for somebody else's benefit. I really believe I'm gonna be able to help a lot of people. I already am. I'm in discipleship myself. I'm discipling others. I'm mentoring. Trying to give back as much as I can. In that letter, I basically told God that I'm willing to give it all away. I don't want any of the money and recognition and all that. That's not what this is about. It's about, giving back.
Yeah. So you'd gone from chasing recognition and applause to now just giving it back.
Yeah. I want other people to shine, really.
Wow, that's beautiful. Was there anything else that you would like to share about your story or your perspective or your life or anything else that you would like to share with people?
Just stay tuned. I appreciate and I thank everybody for the support and the encouragement to keep going. And, we're doing this. And I want to thank you, Melanie. This is a wonderful podcast. This is so wholesome and warm and inviting. And I believe that we're going to help each other. This podcast needs to get out there too. Your following needs to expand. And I think I could help with that.
Well, I would appreciate that, Joe. And this I know is that together, you can do so many more things together with people in collaboration than you can on your own.
That's right.
And that's what I love about doing something. This wasn't really I didn't set out necessarily to have a podcast. It just kind of happened. But this is the part of it that I love is showcasing these stories of just inspiring stories that I think will just help other people and help them feel something, maybe a little bit about their own lives. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, Joe. And I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. Just one other thing. Amazon? Your book's on Amazon?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, from bars to jars. Just type it in. And anybody who reads the book, please leave a review. Those reviews are so important because that helps Amazon rank me farther up in the bestseller list.
Okay. Well, you guys, I haven't read this book, but from the little bit that I've seen of Joe, I am excited to read this book. And I would implore all of you to go and buy this book because this right here is, we'll call it rags to riches, whatever definition you want, but it is absolutely inspiring. So thank you for all that you do, Joe.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. God bless.
All right. I'll